Okay, I want you to try and picture this. It's East Berlin, late afternoon, Thursday, November 9th, 1989.
Right.
Outside, it's cold, it's gray. But inside this one particular room, history is about to turn on, well, a single fumbled sentence. The air is just thick.
Yeah, it's the classic scene, isn't it? Late-stage communism.
Yeah.
A stuffy, smoke-filled press room. You've got all these tired international journalists packed in. The TV lights are hot, making everything harsh. And honestly, the energy is just dead. It's supposed to be routine government briefing. Our sources, they really paint this picture of just collective exhaustion.
Exactly. And up there on the podium, you've got Günter Schabowski. He's, 60 years old? Mid-level Politburo guy. And he's been droning on for nearly an hour about some minor party stuff, shuffling papers, looks wiped out. If you were a reporter there, you'd be thinking, what a waste of time.
And that's what's so incredible, the complete mismatch.
Yeah.
You know, between the guy and what's about to happen. The source material really confirms Schabowski is the perfect product of that rigid East German system. A career bureaucrat through and through, a propagandist, really. His whole background was controlling the narrative, especially at the party's main paper, Neues Deutschland.
Yeah.
He's trained to read the script, that's it. No improv.
But here's the thing, and this is our core idea for this deep dive. In just a few minutes, this Italian journalist, he's going to ask a question. And Schabowski's going to grab this note he hasn't really read properly.
A nuke designed for something else entirely.
Exactly. A note meant for an orderly change, and he's going to stammer out an answer that, well, accidentally opens the Berlin Wall.
It's a profound moment. Because it's not about brilliant strategy or, backroom deals. This is pure blunder. A systemic, world-changing mistake, amplified instantly by the media and then seized upon by just desperate human hope, and eventually one man's courage.
So our mission today is to dive deep into how all this came together. This mix of staggering bureaucratic incompetence and really extraordinary individual conscience. How this 28-year-old fortress came down without a shot fired. We want to unpack the details history often just skips over.
And to really get the scale of this collapse, you first have to understand the thing itself, the Berlin Wall. Not just as a symbol, but at a physical, deadly reality.
We call it the wall, right? But the sources are clear it was way more complex. A 155-kilometer system, basically a machine built for separation and death.
Precisely. The East Germans called it the anti-fascist protection rampart, which is quite the euphemism.
You think?
Its real job was trapping its own citizens. So first you'd hit this inner concrete barrier, maybe 11 feet high, get over that, and you're in the death strip. Infamous.
Yeah.
About 100 yards wide.
The name alone is terrifying, but what was actually in it? What made it so deadly?
Oh, it was engineered. Meticulously. The sources detail how the ground was kept tilled, covered in fine sand.
Sand. Why sand?
Footprints. Simple as that. Any attempt to cross, your footprints would be instantly visible to the guards up in the towers. Hundreds of them.
And the lighting.
Oppressive is the word. All night long, every single night, massive 1,000-watt searchlights on those towers. No shadows, nowhere to hide. And then, the sources confirm, there were other lovely features that evolved over time.
Like?
Anti-vehicle trenches, huge coils of barbed wire, beds of nails hidden in the grass, Stalin's carpet, they sometimes called it, tripwires linked to flares, so bang, they knew exactly where you were.
So the stakes were just absolute, life or death.
Literally. The human cost was awful. Official numbers, they vary a bit, but solid research confirms at least 140 people died trying to cross between 61 and 89.
Ow!
Shot by guards, drowned in the River Spree trying to get around it, accidents on the fortifications themselves. It was a fortress built to kill its own people.
Okay, so that's the monster, the physical reality. But by the fall of '89, this monster was under serious pressure, right? The roar of the people.
Absolutely crucial context here. The GDR government wasn't just dealing with grumbling at home. It was, and this is a quote from the time, hemorrhaging citizens.
Oh.
Well, 1989 was the year the cracks really showed across the Warsaw Pact. Gorbachev's new policy of non-intervention was key. Hungary saw its chance and opened its border with Austria.
The escape route.
Exactly. East Germans could holiday in Hungary, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly they realized they could just walk into Austria. And from there, West Germany. Thousands started pouring out. Then Czechoslovakia followed suit.
So the state was losing its population.
By the truckload. Doctors, engineers, skilled workers, bleeding the economy dry. It caused absolute panic in the Politburo.
And inside East Germany itself, the pressure was building too, not just people leaving.
No, the sources are really clear on the power of the Monday demonstrations. They started small, actually. Quietly. In Leipzig.
Prayer meetings.
Yeah, initially focused on human rights, peaceful prayer meetings. But they just grew and grew. These weren't riots. They were organized, disciplined acts of resistance, week after week, bigger and bigger.
And that chant, Wir sind das Volk.
We are the people. Powerful, wasn't it? A direct challenge to the party's whole claim to represent the working class. It was saying, no, we are the people. You don't speak for us.
How big did they get?
Huge. In Leipzig alone, they went from a few thousand to over 300,000 people marching peacefully. The leadership was terrified. They knew Moscow wouldn't send tanks this time. They had lost control of the streets.
Which sets the stage perfectly, this convergence of, well, human weakness and political chaos. And what's amazing is that the main players, the key characters in this drama, they were completely accidental figures, utterly unqualified for these roles.
The truly unlikely trio, yeah.
Let's start with the man in the spotlight, Günter Schabowski, the accidental revolutionary. His whole profile screams, wrong man, wrong time.
He really was the last person you'd expect. A party man, pure and simple. His competence came from following orders, sticking to the script. Years at Neues Deutschland.
The party paper.
Exactly. Not a newspaper like we think of it. It was the official voice of the Socialist Unity Party. His entire career was built on delivering the approved message. No deviations. He wasn't a strategist, he was a mouthpiece.
And the irony is just staggering. This system, obsessed with control, eliminating risk, it produces the one guy whose weakness, needing a script, unable to think on his feet, becomes the very thing that destroys the system.
Absolutely. If he'd been sharp, politically savvy, maybe he stalls, maybe he clarifies. But no, his instinct, his conditioning was just to read the words on the paper. His rigidity became the state's undoing.
Okay, so that's Schabowski. Now, about 5 miles away, there's our second key figure, Harald Jäger, the man at the gate.
Lieutenant Colonel Jäger, Stasi, deputy commander at the Bornholmer Street crossing.
And who was this guy? Not just some border guard punching a clock. Right?
No. The sources stress this. Jäger was a true believer. His dad was an early border guard. Jäger joined up at 18. He physically helped build the wall back in 1961. He'd spent his entire adult life defending what they called the anti-fascist protection rampart. He believed in it.
So deeply invested. Ideologically committed.
Totally. His identity, his loyalty, everything was tied to the state he served. And on this night, this utterly loyal soldier, defender of the system, he's about to be completely cut adrift by that same system. Left alone to face thousands of his own people, armed only with his conscience and orders that were suddenly terrifyingly obsolete.
And then there's the third character, often overlooked, but maybe the most important, the people, the human wave.
Yes. They weren't passive anymore. Their patience was gone. You have to remember those months of protests, the sheer size of the crowds, 500,000 across the country at the peak. They were primed, ready to move the second they saw an opening.
They weren't waiting for permission.
Not at all. They were waiting for the tiniest crack. Any sign of weakness, they were ready to exploit it.
Okay, so let's talk about how the state provided that crack. It really boils down to a series of panicked, frankly incompetent moves at the very top.
Oh, the bureaucratic failure is almost comical if the consequences weren't so huge. The Politburo was desperate. Hemorrhaging citizens, massive protests.
Yeah.
They had to do something, or look like they were.
They thought tweaking travel rules would let off some steam.
That was the idea. A safety valve. But their first try. November 6th. Absolute disaster.
Why?
Because it was transparently garbage. The draft law they announced still required people to jump through all these bureaucratic hoops, long applications, waiting periods, approvals needed, which everyone knew you wouldn't get if you were, say, a known protester.
So people saw right through it.
Instantly. The public reaction was furious. Complete trash, they called it. The protests actually got bigger.
So the government panicked again.
Yep. Total panic mode.
Yeah.
On the morning of November 9th, this small group of stressed-out officials basically scribbled down a new temporary decree, a stopgap measure. Let people apply to leave more easily. That hasty document, that was the time bomb.
And here it is, the single fatal error, the hidden tripwire.
The embargo. It's almost unbelievable. The new rules were explicitly meant to be announced the next day, Friday, November 10th.
Why the delay?
Logistics. They needed time. There was supposed to be a strict media embargo until 4:00 a.m. on the 10th.
Right.
To brief the guards. All 15,000 border guards, police, customs officials, the people who actually had to implement the rules. They knew if they didn't brief them first, it would be chaos.
Makes sense. So what happened to the briefing? Or the embargo memo?
Total breakdown. Utter chaos. Schabowski missed the key parts of the meeting where the timing and the embargo were hammered out. And worse, the final memo. The piece of paper physically handed to him by the party leader, Egon Krenz, literally minutes before the press conference.
Yes.
It was missing the crucial line about the date and the 4 a.m. embargo.
Yeah,
It wasn't printed on his copy. Maybe Krenz forgot, maybe the secretary missed it. Who knows? But it wasn't there.
You're kidding. The fate of the wall, maybe the Cold War, hung on a typo or someone forgetting to pass on a memo.
Pretty much. Yeah. He walked out onto that stage. The sources confirm this. Completely oblivious, holding a historical time bomb, fuse lit, and he didn't even know it.
Just wow. A comedy of errors isn't strong enough.
World-altering errors.
Okay, back to that stuffy press room. It's now 6:53 p.m. Schabowski's wrapping up his dull report. Journalists are bored, restless. Some are actually packing up.
Convinced it's a dud. Nothing burger.
And then,
Yeah.
the moment.
Yeah.
It's triggered by one question.
Ricardo Erman, Italian journalist and SA news agency. Now, there's some debate. Maybe he got a little tip-off that something about travel was coming up. But regardless.
He asks the right question.
The perfect question. He asks about that failed law from a few days before. Don't you think, he asked Schabowski, that was a big mistake?
And that jogs Schabowski's memory?
Exactly.
Yeah?
It reminds him, oh, yeah, I have this other piece of paper. So he fumbles around, puts on his glasses, finds the memo Krenz gave him, and he starts reading it out loud. The part about citizens now being able to apply for private travel abroad through any border crossing.
And the mood in the room.
Instantly electric. From sleepy to buzzing in a second, the reporters know this is big, potentially huge. But it's still just a policy announcement. They need the when.
The timeline.
Right. And this is where the Western press, particularly the West German press, plays a crucial role. Peter Brinkmann, reporter for Bild tabloid, known for being aggressive.
He shouts out.
Yeah, shouts across the room. The killer question. Wann tritt das in Kraft? When does this take effect?
And Schabowski, unprepared.
Totally unprepared. Caught completely flat-footed. You can see it in the footage. He's sweating under the lights, visibly flustered. He looks down at the paper again, scanning desperately.
Looking for the date, the time, the embargo.
The embargo detail that isn't there, it's not on his copy.
And he can't improvise. He can't just say, I don't know, or we'll clarify later.
No way. He's a party man. His job is to project certainty, even when, maybe especially when, he has none.
So he looks up, confused, exhausted. He kind of shrugs and delivers the words.
The two adverbs that change the world. He says hesitantly, Das tit nach meiner Kenntnis. As far as I know.
Ist das sofort ohne Verzögerung?
That takes effect immediately, without delay.
Wow.
The sources describe this stunned silence for maybe half a second. Then just bedlam, absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Journalists shouting, scrambling for the phones. It's the sound of a system built on total control, completely losing it right there, live on air, because of one fumbled sentence.
And the media, they didn't wait for clarification, did they? They just ran with it.
Oh, instantly. This is the acceleration. They knew what they'd heard or what it sounded like. At 7:05 p.m., just 12 minutes after Schabowski uttered those words.
12 minutes?
Yeah. AP, Reuters, the big news agencies flash headlines worldwide. GDR opens borders. Now, that's still wire copy, right? Important. But the real catalyst, the thing that got people moving, will come a bit later.
8:00 p.m., West German television.
That's the moment, the point of no return. Tagesschau, the main evening news program on West Germany's ARD channel.
Which everyone in East Germany who could get the signal was watching.
Absolutely. Appointment television. And the anchorman, Hans-Joachim Friedrichs, he makes a call, a deliberate editorial decision. He doesn't hedge. He doesn't say it appears or reports suggest.
What does he say?
He looks straight at the camera and declares, quote, "This 9th of November is a historic day. East Germany has announced that its borders are open. The gates of the wall are wide open."
Wow. But they weren't. Physically, the gates are still locked.
Exactly. It wasn't true. Not yet. But Friedrichs and the media machine, they made it true. They created this overwhelming expectation, this unstoppable momentum. Reality now had to catch up with the news report.
Incredible. Okay, let's pivot back to Lieutenant Colonel Harald Jäger at the Bornholmer Street crossing.
Yeah, picture this. Jäger's probably in the break room, maybe eating a sandwich, trying to decompress from what was already a crazy day. And he sees that 8:00 p.m. broadcast.
He sees Friedrich saying the gates are wide open.
And the sources say he almost choked. Because he's looking at the monitor, then maybe glancing out the window at his heavy steel barrier, which is very much not open.
The system is literally lying about him, about his reality, on live TV.
Precisely. The TV is announcing something impossible. He knows it's not true, but then his phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Orders!
No. That's the thing, not orders, questions. Confused guards under his command calling in, journalists demanding access. His actual superior, Colonel Ziegenhorn, calls, but only confirms the paralysis. Nothing's changed, Jäger. Tell him to go away. Send them away.
So total chaos. Media saying one thing, zero useful orders, and then people start showing up.
Around 7:30 p.m., yeah, just a few at first. Curious. They heard the news. They came to see. But remember, these people had been protesting for months. They were ready to push. Curiosity very quickly turned into demand.
Okay, so the next 4 hours, this must have been the most intense period of Jäger's entire life. A crisis of command, crisis of conscience, all happening right there on the front line. Bornholmer Street.
Absolutely intense. The crowd just swells exponentially. From a few hundred, it grows to thousands, then tens of thousands. By 11:30 p.m., estimates are over 20,000 people, packed tight, pushing against the fences, the noise, the tension, palpable.
And the chant.
Tore off, over and over. Open the gate, open the gate. It becomes the soundtrack to the crisis.
And Jäger, what's he doing?
He's trapped. His guards have live ammunition. They have standing orders, defend the border, prevent breaches, use force if necessary. He's making call after call, desperate calls, up the chain of command, begging for instructions. What do I do?
And the response from the top. From the Stasi leadership, the Politburo.
Nothing useful.
Right.
Silence, or worse, paralysis. The sources call his superiors cowards, paralyzed by the chaos they created.
They wouldn't order him to shoot.
Because that meant a massacre, international condemnation. Tiananmen Square was fresh in everyone's minds.
But they wouldn't order him to open the gates either.
Because that meant admitting defeat. Admitting the GDR was finished. So they just left him there, alone, in this total command vacuum.
The psychological pressure for a man like Jäger, whose whole life was built on hierarchy.
Must have been unbearable. And it snaps. There's a specific moment Jäger himself cited later, a tipping point. He's on a conference call, pleading for guidance, and he overhears a senior Stasi officer ask contemptuously if Jäger is a coward, if he's unable to assess the situation himself.
Oh, wow. To call him a coward, the man who helped build the wall.
That was it. The ultimate insult, the ultimate betrayal from the system he'd served his whole life. He said he felt furious, utterly abandoned. His loyalty didn't necessarily shift to the crowd, but it definitely snapped away from those superiors.
But they did give him one last desperate instruction, didn't they? The Ventilosung.
Ah, yes, the valve solution. A truly terrible idea born of panic. The order was basically let a few people out, the loudest ones, the troublemakers. Let them through the small pedestrian gate, one by one.
To relieve the pressure.
That was the theory. But, and this is crucial, they were ordered to stamp their passports with a special mark. A mark that effectively invalidated their citizenship, kicked them out, exiled them.
A subtle way to get rid of dissenters.
That was the pathetic logic. Exile the noisy ones, scare the rest into going home.
And how did that work out?
It backfired, instantly and spectacularly. The crowd saw people getting through. Even if it was just a trickle, it proved the border wasn't sealed anymore. So instead of calming down, they pushed harder.
Because they saw it was possible.
Exactly. And they didn't want some humiliating exile stamp. They wanted freedom. The pressure became immense, dangerously intense.
So Jäger's now facing a potential stampede. It's 11:30 p.m. People could get crushed.
It's a lethal situation. He has two choices. Obey the last, vague order to hold the line, which probably means his men open fire eventually, a massacre. Or disobey everything he's ever been taught.
He looks at his armed guards.
Yeah.
He looks at the faces in the crowd.
His fellow citizens, grandparents, workers, teachers, not enemies. And he makes the choice. Feeling betrayed, abandoned. The system failed him. His conscience, maybe his sense of pragmatic humanity, won out.
11:30 p.m.
11:30 p.m. Lieutenant Colonel Harald Jäger, his voice reportedly cracking with the strain, turns to his men. And he gives the order that echoes through history. Open the barrier.
Open the barrier and the dam breaks.
Oh, the descriptions are incredible. A deafening roar, sources say. Pure joy. Unadulterated relief. Eyewitness accounts talk about people crying, laughing, screaming, weeping. Strangers hugging, kissing, sharing cheap champagne. Decades of pent-up emotion just exploding.
And the images, they're iconic now.
Absolutely. Those little Trabant cars, the two-stroke East German cars, sputtering into West Berlin by the thousands, filling the air with blue smoke, overwhelming the checkpoints.
People climbing on the wall itself.
Dancing on it, on the very symbol of their oppression. And then, the my respect, the wall woodpeckers.
Right. People just started chipping away at it.
With hammers, chisels, anything they could find, taking pieces. Physically dismantling the Cold War piece by piece. It was chaotic, beautiful, unbelievable. The Cold War essentially ended that night. on the streets of Berlin.
So let's synthesize this. We've followed the chain of events. How did this happen? How does a 28-year fortress that killed over 100 people just vanish overnight without a fight? We've identified really 4 key pillars supporting this collapse.
Right. Pillar number 1 has to be bureaucratic incompetence, sheer systemic failure.
A panicked government makes a flawed policy, rushes it out, and then completely fails to tell its own spokesman the most critical detail when it starts. That missing embargo wasn't just a slip-up. It showed a regime in paralysis.
Pillar 2, media amplification, the power of the broadcast.
Western TV, especially 𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐏, took Schabowski's confused, mistaken words and broadcast them as solid fact. They didn't just report the news, they created the reality. That announcement generated unstoppable momentum.
Pillar 3, people power. You cannot discount this.
The citizens themselves, emboldened by months of peaceful protest, that Wir sind das Volk spirit. They heard the news and they bravely went to the wall to call the government's bluff. They turned a news report into physical reality by simply showing up and demanding it be true.
And finally, Pillar 4, individual conscience in a crisis of command.
Harald Jäger. The whole weight of the GDR system collapsed onto his shoulders in that moment. His superiors abandoned him, and he chose humanity over orders. He chose not to shoot. That single decision by that one man prevented a massacre and allowed history to turn peacefully.
The human consequences, the legacies, they're fascinating too. Schabowski didn't just fade away.
No, he faced consequences later, didn't he?
He did. After reunification, he and other Politburo members were tried, convicted for their collective responsibility, their moral guilt regarding the shoot-to-kill policy at the border over the years.
Did he serve time?
Yes, though he was pardoned later. But he did publicly acknowledge his moral guilt, his role in that brutal system. A complex end for the man who made the famous mistake.
And Jäger, the man who opened the gate. What happened to the hero of Bornholmer Street?
It's a poignant story. He wasn't exactly celebrated by the new system. He was investigated, though never charged. But essentially, he was pushed out of the security services during reunification, lost his career, his identity.
Struggled in the New Germany.
Very much so, according to reports. The man who arguably saved the state from committing a final atrocity found himself adrift in the very democracy he helped usher in.
And the final image.
He ended up running a small newspaper kiosk, little shop, just yards away from the Bornholmer Street crossing he opened that night. From Stasi Lieutenant Colonel defending the wall to selling papers near its ghost.
2 lives, forever tangled by that one night. Incredible. It really is staggering. The Cold War, the fate of Europe, didn't hinge on generals or presidents that night. It hinged on a fumbling bureaucrat reading a faulty memo and a border guard deciding not to shoot.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? History turns on these human moments. Miscommunication, individual choices, courage, incompetence. Often more than grand strategies.
We started this deep dive talking about this massive, deadly fortress. 28 years it stood. And it fell because of an administrative error, a piece of paper read at the wrong time, and a crowd brave enough to make that error real. Which, when you think about it, it forces you, the listener, to wonder, how many other rigid walls or systems, political, corporate, social, whatever, are standing right now purely because of inertia, because of obsolete orders, just waiting for one clumsy word, one bit of miscommunication, one moment of collective courage to make them crumble.
That's the real question, isn't it? What system are you watching right now that's only held up because the people in charge are too afraid or too paralyzed to give a new command?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.